Welcome to Brave. Be inspired by the best leaders of Southeast Asia tech. Build the future, learn from our past, and stay human in between. I'm Jeremy Au, a VC, founder, and father. Join us for transcripts, analysis, and community at www.jeremyau.com. Hey Zelia, I'm so excited to have you on the show.
Hey Jeremy, thanks for having me.
I'm amazed because you have such an interesting founder story as someone who has worked at Vanity, who has built a company, went through a pivot to where you are today, really tackling the remote productivity space. And you have a wicked sense of humor as well, based on your LinkedIn posts. And so I'm excited to hear your story.
Thanks. Sounds great.
So Zelia, can you tell us about yourself?
Right now, I'm the co-founder of Reward Nation. We are a remote team productivity tool, but I started my journey not in tech. So I worked in HR for a couple of years, did my diploma in HR and psychology, actually, and thought I would just die working as HR. But things took a turn a couple of years into the role, and I decided to do something different. So that was about a decade ago, and I didn't know what to do, so I did what every sane person would. Quit my job, got a one-way ticket, flew to the furthest, cheapest possible destination, ended up in Sweden. And that turned out into a couple months around Europe, around Asia, going to places I never knew existed, doing couch surfing, work holidays, and just figuring out along the way. So I did staying in a cabin in the Arctic Circle, did the Swedish midsummer celebrations, ended up in Ukraine, Poland, and a couple other crazy adventures along the way. And when I came back, I realized that I didn't want to just go back into HR again, but I still didn't know what to do. So that was when I did a master's at Anywhr. And it was a module in Anywhr on venture capital. Totally regret that now, that I learned about the world of startups and how it worked. It was basically a team getting together, making a difference, building things, and making sure there are results. So no red tape, just results, making an impact. And I thought, hey, that sounds like it's really for me. And that's how I started my journey at Rocket Internet. So I ended up at one of the ventures, Vanity. A while later, ended up being the head of marketing. And that was where I met my now co-founder, Felix, who was head of operations. And we were just talking about random startup ideas as friends, having dinners and drinks, and everyone has some random idea for an app. So a few random app ideas later, I said, hey, why not we send people on holidays and they don't know where they're going and to at the airport. So that was how Anywhr, our first startup, happened. We started planning surprise trips, sending people to off the beaten track places. Then it got so popular that travelers said, hey, besides just surprise trips, I want you to plan all my other holidays. So we started doing general personal trip planning curation. Customers from all around the world, from Europe, America, Singapore, Asia, of course. And that was when COVID happened a few years into the startup. And we decided, hey, instead of just hibernating, we want to improve our current resources. We want to grow the company so that when COVID is over 3 months later, like what everyone thought, we would have everything and we are ready to go. So we hired a huge remote team because now that everyone is remote, why not take advantage of the talent around the world? Why not just limit it to Singapore? So we had a team of freelancers, part-timers from different states in US and Scotland, India, Vietnam, and so on. Things were going really well. However, every other team and company, we faced the challenge of keeping them motivated and connected. We can't meet in real life. We tried Airbnb experiences online. We played virtual games. We sent food to each other, but the human connection is just missing. And everyone's just so different. So for example, we tried an activity, a Slack bot that asked you to send a photo of what you did over the weekend to the group. And that was interesting, but we just give a reaction on Slack, an emoji, and there's nothing else to connect. Like, hey, okay, cool, you did this, but so what? I don't even know you. And then I realized one day that what binds all these random different people together is that we want to learn, we want to contribute, and we want to make an impact to the company. And it's the company that makes us the same or connects us. So we started as an experiment, a channel on Slack to let employees recognize each other. So all team members can send recognition messages and give little points and they can use those points to redeem gift cards from me. So super random, we hacked this out. And I was so surprised because the intern started using it, recognizing the head of engineering. The engineer started recognizing the marketers. And I was like, wow, holy shit, this really works. And as the boss, I don't have to force you to use it. And you're just using it on your own. Something must be special here. Worked really well. Our team got very connected. And all these were public on the Slack channel. So I could see what's going on, the social dynamics. And people just started getting much closer and working together. Productivity, motivation increased. Then when I shared this with other friends, founders, managers, they said, hey, I want this tool as well. And then a while later, it became a full-on pivot to Reward Nation to what it is now. Yeah, that's the long story.
Amazing. And so, Zelia, could you just share a little bit more about those early days? Because you said, quote unquote, you thought you were going to die in HR, and then you decided not to die in HR and start living. So what triggered that move?
I can't pinpoint exactly to something, but I would say it's my personality. I am not good at sitting behind a desk doing admin, working on details, documents. Yeah, so that was one of it. And I realized also I was pretty ignorant to everything that's going on. So for example, I did not know what the marketing team did, what the sales team did. I only knew what my job was or what I studied, being, in a Singaporean education system. So I decided to see the world, learn more things, speak with more people, and then somehow fell into startups and tech along the way.
And while you're thinking about all of this, you fell into startups and tech, and your first experience was at Vanity Day, right, under Rocket Internet. What was that first 1 day, 1 week like? Any visuals or memories of that space?
It was foreign and intimidating and exciting because coming from traditional corporate, I stepped into the office. There were no cubicles. Everyone was just sitting on open desk. It was just desks and 4 walls. The team just started here and nobody really had a plan, but yet we were all working hard and trying many different things, working together, chatting, having many ideas. And I was foreign to all these, yet very excited because this was what I read and what my VC module told me and what I signed up for. So intimidating, yet exciting.
So, Vanity Day obviously was growing like crazy at that time. Any fun stories from that time?
Yeah, so when I meet a few of my friends in startups who have grown to great heights now, we all seem to have the same story that it started off giving flyers in the CBD. So it's like a rite of passage that we did that, like flyers outside Lau Pa Sat, outside along Orchard Road. And when I speak with folks who were the early employees of startups like Grab, they do that too. So I guess everyone has done this giving flyers thing that somehow, I don't know whether it works or not, but pretty fun and interesting experience to look back on.
Awesome. While you're doing all of this, it sounds like you were learning about technology because you said you have been doing preparation work versus actually being in it. And so what's interesting is that as you did all of that is that you eventually transitioned to becoming a founder of your own. So tell us more about that transition between technology operator to wanting to become a founder.
So I have never intended to, and again, it was a random idea over drinks, and it happened, and somehow we just saw it through. So I remember the days of planning for it. We were just at the food court after a long day of work that sometimes ends at 10, 11 p.m. We were just sitting in an empty food court that's closed, writing out a basic plan, an MVP, creating the website, what to build, and not even sure whether we will have any customers. And then somehow we had customers, we had traction, things started growing, and it just snowballed from there. So it wasn't planned, but definitely not uncalled for.
Were you working on this at the side while at various jobs or for Anywhr at that time? Or was it like, did you quit your job in advance of it?
Yeah. So the idea and the rough planning came while we still had our jobs because it was like a hobby, right? Nobody knew it will actually take off. So it was a just for fun thing. And when we really had customers traction, and then that was when we quit.
And what was traction when you said it was enough traction for you to quit? Can you share with us how much traction was that?
I can't remember exactly, but we had healthy amount of customers. We had recurring customers, and we realized we really need to make this work because people are trusting their travels, their lives with us, and we can't focus while having a full-time job that's really demanding. So we decided to just quit and make it work.
So it was like, what, about 10 customers, 20 customers, you think?
Yeah, probably.
Right. So it's interesting, right? So a lot of people, obviously, they start becoming a founder by starting out a side hustle on the side and they do it while at work. What advice would you give to someone who's thinking about it? I'm sure founders talk to you or aspiring founders talk to you all the time, which is like, okay, I want to quit my job now, do the startup. Should I do it or how do I do it? What advice would you give them?
I guess it always depends because for me, I'm privileged not to have any financial commitments or responsibilities. So I was able to do that. But I've heard of founders not being able to pay the bills, support their family and kids. So that is also pretty irresponsible because it turns out that the company didn't work out and that person has to then find a job. It's getting to a point where if you can't pay rent or feed your child, then I will not say, hey, just go for it, because it will be irresponsible of me to say that. So yeah, take a check at all your commitments and of course see whether you can scale down what you need to survive on a daily basis if you want to bootstrap. And of course, there are also a lot of people who say, hey, the first thing I want to do is raise. Then my advice is don't raise before you actually get any traction and have idea of what you're doing or what you're raising for. There were also some folks who say, hey, I have a job now and I have a startup idea and now I'm going to raise.
Let's talk about that because I just had a call today and the person was like, I want to raise $2 million. And I was like, okay, do you have any traction and what's your user test? And he was like, I've done no user testing, but the research papers say that this should work.
Oh, wow.
And I was like, oh.
Are they an MBA student? But okay.
No, I know. I wish it was an MBA student. But it was not an MBA student. So, and I was like, okay, are you amazing? Are you someone who's like successfully raised and exited before a business? And he was like, no. And I was like, okay, here's an awkward conversation we're going to have, which is like, I think the idea is okay. Yet I'm not sure if this fundraising strategy is going to pan out for you. So I don't know. What do you think about that, Zelia? Yeah.
I mean, it works for many different people differently, but my take would be to do an MVP and find at least some form of validation or a few customers, because there was an example that someone I spoke with as well who told me the exact same thing. And instead of talking about the business, all he said was also, my mentor put me in front of this VC and I was connected to this VC. Oh, who are your investors? Can I talk to them? As well, I'm like, oh, okay, but he doesn't even know what is product market fit. I wasn't kidding. Like when I asked him, oh, have you found product market fit? And he said, what's that? And he was asking me a few sessions later, what is customer lifetime value? So before you speak with investors, all these things should be taken care of first. But sometimes people don't, they fail to see how the steps should actually look like.
Yeah, I think it's just people are just excited. And I think also the fundraising is the most visible side of the startup because that's why you read in Tech in Asia, which I call the dreams page, right? It's like, oh, I can be Caro, I can be X, I can be Y. And I'm like, these are all fundraising announcements and not necessarily business announcements, which is the tough part. So what advice do you normally give to founders like your friend who didn't understand what lifetime value and the unit economics, but more importantly, I think product market fit. What would you think about that? Yeah.
So, I mean, I'm not an expert or genius myself. Like you said, I've not exited any startups yet. So I would always recommend a few key books that I have read that really, really helped me. I can share more about it later. So everyone talks about, hey, I read this book, I must be a genius now. I read this book, I must be Elon Musk. So I read a couple of those. Many of them doesn't really work, but miraculously through a lot of reading, scrolling, lurking around Facebook groups, I found one that I actually stopped on the first chapter because I realized that there's a lot for me to work on already on the first chapter, and they talk about product market fit. It's called The Startup Owner's Manual, a hardcover book. I don't think they sell it in Singapore yet. But yeah, so that really, really helped. And I told the guy, hey, just go and read this book. I think Elad Gil wrote another one that is similar as well, like the High Growth Handbook. So that was also really helpful because it has all the notes that I wish I knew earlier. For example, how to deal with investors, with boards, with firing, with recruitment, with culture. So every single thing. And it's a handbook, not so much like a book where you read cover to cover, but you refer to it in times of need. Something like a Bible, I guess.
And there's apocalypse at the end.
Let's see.
So I guess the tricky part, of course, is that, Zelia, what's interesting as well is that, you built out this company that was in the travel space and you worked in it for, quite a number of years, 3, 4 years, and then COVID hit. So what was that like for you personally?
It was very emotional and very taxing because we had to let go of team members. We had to throw away everything. Anywhr was actually a finalist in the SIA App Challenge. We really enjoyed working with the team. We were in the midst of discussing some really exciting stuff, and we had to just drop all of that. It was, like I said, quite taxing. And even till today, we have people messaging the Anywhr platform saying, hey, are you still planning trips? Because a lot of our customers are in America and Europe, and travel is resuming there now. So every day people are saying, hey, when are you coming back? And they take the effort to, email us, find us on all channels, Instagram, Facebook. When we told our existing travelers, we have many recurring travelers that we are sorry that I'm taking a longer time to reply because we have no team in Anywhr now. And they were actually really sad and sent us really nice messages like, hey, I'm sorry to hear that. Hope you'll be able to come back soon. So emotionally, it was quite heavy for us. However, as Reward Nation has more and more traction, we can see the impact and difference we are making. It also makes me very excited because we started off, again, not knowing where this will go. It was pretty random. And we have large enterprises reaching out to us organically, directly, saying, I want to use it. This is exactly the problem I'm facing. Can you please help me? And actually, today we are working with a lot of large enterprises instead of startups that we thought we would. Helping them solve real problems in the way of remote work, connecting their teams. And it's also really fun seeing how their teams, at first they were pretty confused on like, hey, what is this point system? And when they started recognizing each other, getting recognition, you could see their eyes lit up. And as they continue engaging and sending some of the messages, sharing with us what they have been recognizing each other with, it also gives me another sense of fulfillment and excitement.
And let's do a compare and contrast. So there you are in the middle of COVID. How were you taking care of yourself? Because, you said it sucked, right? I mean, it sucked to so many people. I have friends who are in F&B and it still sucks. I have people in travel and also trying to figure out what's still going on. So they didn't pivot like you. I was just wondering, how did you take care of yourself during the pandemic? Because there you are, obviously the entire world feels like it sucks. But there you are also doing a travel company and as a founder, not an employee. Yeah.
Yeah, it really sucked. You're right. And it sucks for everyone. I would be lying to say I did a great job at taking care of myself, but I was lucky to have a good support system. I live with my husband, so just me and him. That was even before we got married, and we were both working from home in a small room. Everyone can share everyone's calls, but we've managed to find a healthy balance and just try to get better along the way. One thing that really helped was actually cooking. So we made our own meals at home, simple meals, and just felt a lot healthier, a lot more wholesome. And life just changed. So I saw on Facebook some of my friends saying that one thing they realized during the pandemic or the lockdown is that they had to buy a lot more dishwashing liquid because they cook and wash so much. And it was the same for us. So a lot of cooking, talking about food, groceries, that kind of boring stuff that made us find a balance and feel like we are also taking care of ourselves and each other. So until today, we are still having a good habit of making meals at home, which has really improved our lives quite a lot.
Oh, that's so sweet and that's amazing. I gotta ask, what's your favorite set of dishes that you've learned how to cook during the pandemic?
So we got a hack that is super auntie, but I regretted not buying it earlier. So we only got it, I think, early this year instead of during the first lockdown. We bought an Instant Pot. And it changes your life. So yeah, tell me if you want some recipes. I'm an expert. I think 5-minute meals. And we were in this group, the Super Momos group of a product community. And in Leong, we all ended up talking about Instant Pot recipes because a lot of other people like me found comfort in this hobby during the lockdown.
Well, it's interesting because a lot of founders, they struggle with feeling and carving out enough time for hobbies because, you're feeling like guilty that you're not working hard enough in the company. So how do you, and you kind of talk about it, it's like you enjoyed it because it's boring. So how should a founder think about their hobbies or their time out for themselves or carving time for their family?
I'm not sure because I don't think I'm doing a good job myself. Like you said, the guilt. So the cooking thing is sustenance. We need to eat, so no choice. We have to cook. But I have picked up a couple hobbies over the years, and none of them has been really sustainable. And I'm not sure whether it's because of work. It could be, but it also could be many reasons, being distracted or using work as an excuse, not being able to compartmentalize. So I would say try to regulate your thoughts. So this is what a friend of I have been discussing. Both of us still suck at it, but we keep telling other people and each other that regulate your thoughts, regulate your emotions, because sometimes when a great thing happens at work, you get super happy and excited. Then when something disappointing happens, you became very moody, and that affects everyone at home as well as yourself. So yeah, regulate and let me know if you ever manage to do it well.
Any tips on regulating yourself from personal experience or tips?
It might not be the most encouraging, but this is what I tell myself when something good happens, like, okay, don't get too excited. So that when something bad happens, then I try not to get too upset as well. I'm not sure whether it's the best because then I prevent myself from feeling excitement or motivation. But yeah, let's see.
I think we're all figuring it out. I think I definitely agree with you. I think it's very Zen and Buddhist, right? They call it equanimity, which is freedom from desire. You can self-regulate in any environment. And I think it's a very fair way to approach it, I think. I think there's a phrase, right? This too shall pass. Good times, this too shall pass. And
Exactly.
in bad times, this too shall pass. I think it's a good reminder of what's in front of you and being present. And so I think what's tricky about this is, you're kind of talking about this and you talk about your friends, and what's the support network that you have as a founder from your perspective in terms of people?
I'm lucky enough to have a very strong, small but strong support network. So in terms of work or personal life, even it's from a group of our investors. So they're always there for us to reach out to them anytime via WhatsApp even, or for quick calls, or whenever we have a blocker or something I can't wrap my head around. So a group of them have been super, super supportive, and I can't thank them enough. Even for personal things, like one of them recommended me a therapist. I was like, oh, cool. Yeah, which I saw. So that was very, very amazing. And then, of course, friends, people knowing what you're going through and understanding. So they might not be experiencing the same thing, but they understand enough to know the support to provide and the things to say and not to say. Because instead of just saying, hey, don't be so stressed, right? Then that doesn't help anything. It's like asking people to calm down when you're really angry. So the people there just saying, I'm here for you, it's enough. Or just laughing at each other's pain together, it's also fine.
That's also funny. So, one interesting thing I noticed about you, Zelia, of course, is that you are so funny, at least on LinkedIn and all the stuff that I've seen you post as well. So tell us more about how you started being funny, I guess, or being witty.
I mean, the memes always say, right, the more trauma you have, it contributes to a personality of being funny. So, yeah. I think that's the best answer I can think of. Should be pretty legit as well.
So you just say, I've been so traumatized as a founder, that's why I'm funny now. So tell us more. So you've been on LinkedIn, on different places, you have that humor. How does that help you cope, I guess, or think through things? Do you ever laugh at your own jokes while doing something?
Yeah, all the time.
See the funny in a situation?
I was quite proud of my trolling. I guess a few of those LinkedIn stuff is because when we started Reward Nation, we were like, hey, we need to be B2B now. We need to post a serious content. Then I realized that I really suck at writing serious content and it's very boring. It's not me, and I feel trapped doing it. Like, what am I going to write about? What research am I going to do? Or what research papers am I going to share? It's really boring. I hate it. I don't think anyone would care as well. So we tried a couple and it's really not me. And they say the founder's personality or branding is the company's branding. So one day, randomly, I just decided, hey, why not? I just post stupid things. And I shared some jokes. It went viral. I got a shock. And that was what spurred me to say, I can just keep doing this. It can be my personal voice. And I'm sharing with no expectations of anything. It's just for everyone to have a laugh, because everyone is just sharing like, oh, I'm humbled to be nominated for this, or this is why you should buy my product kind of thing, or research papers. So just add a little bit of humor or Twitter content to the feed. And if you enjoy it, then it's amazing. And I'm really, really happy that you appreciate it together with me.
Yes, I definitely did. And definitely caught my eye as seeing some of that content. Could you share with us something that you found funny recently? Was it something you watched or something you read?
It's all memes, and I'm not going to pick up my phone in the middle of the podcast, but something funny that happened today. So I'm taking care of a dog, and then she started having like the most foul farts ever while sitting next to me working. It was so gross. So yeah, I thought that was really funny. She did it like she was sleeping, and then she just turned around and stared at me and farted and went back to sleep twice. So yeah, I took her for a walk, and she had a poop, and that was okay. Yeah, that was funny in real life. Nothing to do with scrolling through a social feed.
Yeah, I think what's amazing is that that was a situation that could have gone and had many different reactions. You could have been working and felt irritated by this person. You could have felt angry for the person doing it. You could have felt confused. Yet, what's interesting is that you found humor in it, which is an interesting dynamic that not everyone would have felt from that experience. I personally find that it's a great way to cope with stuff. Is that how you cope with things? I'm just kind of curious, like humor and looking at
Yeah, definitely.
did it start young? Did it start while you were at Vanity? When did it start, I guess, for you?
I'm not sure. I think it just came and I realized it worked. Maybe also my group of friends, and that's how we talk about ourselves or connect together. Like I have a group of friends in tech or founders. We just get together and talk about our pains and start laughing about it or sharing memes with each other and laughing about it. And a lot of the memes are true, but it's also funny. So yeah, it's a great coping mechanism, honestly.
When you think about humor and everything, do you feel like it's a good coping mechanism?
I guess it depends on the person. Like some people don't understand or can't take it or feel offended. And that was some of my fears when I started sharing jokes as well. Then I realized, hey, but this is my feed. If they don't like it, then too bad. It sucks for them.
Which is true. I mean, the worst case scenario is just read something else.
Exactly.
For those who do like it, they will pay attention, like I did. And so, one interesting thing you talked about was also a lot about it, which was about being authentic in terms of content creation. And you also talk about the shadow of it, which is being worried that people don't like what you're posting or don't like the humor or the jokes. How do you think about it?
The thing about being authentic, posting things that I resonate with, I guess I have no choice because when I try to do like typical B2B content, I can't force myself to do it. I can't bring myself to do it. So I have ideas, I have many open tabs, but I just can't. So I decided to post what I like and what I feel that is real to me. So yeah, I have no other choice actually. And I don't have a boss who say, oh, you have to write a topic on this. It's me, right? So I just say anything I want and I like it.
That's the way to do it. That's interesting. I would love, though I really recommend that people follow you on LinkedIn and
thank you.
enjoy your workplace humor about startups and founder life and everything to do with remote productivity. Zelia, could you share with us a time that you were brave?
So I think the time was when I decided to take the leap and do my master's in Anywhr because I broke my leg during my travel, so I had to come back to Singapore. And my plan was once I recovered, I was going to travel around Southeast Asia. So I had a huge plan like Myanmar, Laos, Cambodia. And when I got the acceptance from NUS, I didn't expect it because I only applied to one. And my plan is I did my best. Then forget it. I'm just going to travel again. And I made plans with friends, people that I would love to travel with. And then I had to make that decision to forget all about it, cancel my plans, and do my master's. So that was a big leap for me and something I never expected to do, but I knew that was best for me because when I got the news, I was hanging out with one of my friends at his place and I opened my email and I was actually really excited. And naturally, I high-fived him. I was like, oh, yeah, I got in. And after that, I said, I'm not doing it. So he said, if your reaction is so positive, then I think you should just do it. We'll always remember that moment. And when I thought about it, I look back, I wonder what could have been if I actually did all my traveling and how would things turn out. So that was a pivotal moment for me.
How do you think your life would have turned out differently if you chose that different path?
I don't know, maybe still in HR. I mean, it's not bad, just it's not for me. Yeah, I have no idea. Or perhaps working somewhere or maybe even starting the company as well since I was traveling. Yeah.
And when you look back on all of that, what do you think made the difference in that decision? Why do you think that was a fork in the road for you?
I would say because I never intended to, and I never saw myself as someone who will all go do a master's and be really studious, because I just wanted to get out of school as soon as possible. So that was a tough decision, and I had to be mature when I was introspecting into it, because the travel was the plan and what seemed the most exciting and natural and real. Like, I'm just going to do it. I don't have to think. But for getting it and doing the master's, I had to really think about it, like the long-term plan, how I felt, what my friends said made sense as well. And maybe deep down, I always knew that it would be good for me.
One interesting thing that I noticed is that you often talk about friends being someone that you turn to for strength, but also for advice, and almost every anecdote that you shared. So why have friends? I mean, I asked that because I was just catching up with another founder and we were just laughing about how we wish we could be robots that just work all the time. But what does friendships mean in the context of when you were an employee versus friendships in the context of being a founder? How does that flavor change? Yeah.
It's similar for me because the personal friends have always been there, or they're there not for work context. You also meet people throughout the context of work. Like a few of my close friends now, I think I met them via LinkedIn randomly. Like they messaged me or I messaged them and we just started having a coffee and became really good friends. And then from there, we got to know each other's friends as well. And one of them lived in the same building as me, so we hung out. So I think it's the same. It's all about human connection. Yeah, so pretty much the same. And the things you talk about with different groups of friends. Other founders, they are like your peers. So when I was working in company with a boss, then you also have peers. So now the peers are just different or working in different roles. Yeah.
And I'm curious because I often hear this voice, which is really about not just what you're going through, but also what you're thinking about the down arrow or the advice at the end of the day. So I'm sure a lot of founders are reaching out to you, right? First-time founders, female founders, founders in the remote space, founders in the travel space. What advice do you normally give them to be thinking about?
I will always say product market fit. Yeah, MVP's product market fit. It never changes because that shaped our business or shaped both of our businesses coming up with things like that. And that is the only journey I have experienced. So which is what I always share with them, especially early stage founders, and reading up on resources. Don't rush into things. Don't rush into fundraising. Yeah, making sure it works and having a system to figure out a way on how to make it work, even though it doesn't seem like it's working right now.
If you travel back 10 years in time, would that have been the advice you gave yourself back in 2011?
Probably not, because I haven't started the company then, but definitely when we were starting Anywhr, for sure. 2011, I would just say, just go and travel as much as you can, because 10 years later, there will be a pandemic and you'll be just eating Instant Pot every day.
I think everyone's having that same realization now as well.
Yep.
Awesome. Thanks, Zelia. I'm going to paraphrase the three big themes I got from you today. The first is thank you so much for sharing about, I think, your professional history, obviously, about how you incidentally became someone in technology after so much travel to becoming a founder. And I think it was just a fun way to hear that story. I think it was also very interesting to hear what I call the pandemic pivot, which is dynamic where you start out with one startup and then you went through the COVID and it sucked and you figure out how to make lemonade out of lemons. I was going to say lemons out of lemonade, which is also pretty cool as well. And I think there's this interesting dynamic there. And the second, of course, is thanks for sharing what I call humor and self-regulation. So just thinking through about how humor is helpful and how to think about it from a content, obviously, creation perspective, but also as something that you have swapped and shared with your friends and used to help self-regulate as a founder and look on the bright side of things and be mindful of where you are in the successes and also be mindful of where you are during the losses. Lastly, thank you so much for being frank about, I think, the different choices and the psychological states, I think, of building and being a founder over and over again. So thank you so much, Zelia.
Thanks for letting me share my story and the opportunity to be in your podcast.
Thank you for listening to Brave. If you enjoyed this podcast, please share this episode with friends and colleagues. Sign up at www.jeremyau.com to discuss this episode with other community members in our forum. Stay well and stay brave.